One of the things you're going to do today is make some agar medium up to grow your organisms in. Usually they come in a couple different ways. This one, for instance, it's backwards on your picture, but this is basically, it says lauryl tryptose broth. And lauryl tryptose broth just means it's a digest of some tryptone, which is some bean protein. And this is what you'd use to grow up some different organisms you'd want to use. It says it's got broth. It's a broth. It doesn't say agar. That's because if you made this up as it says on the box here, on the jar, you're going to get a liquid. You're not going to get a solid plate. To make this a solid plate, you'd have to add a solidifying agent. That solidifying agent is something called agar, again backwards, bacto-agar. This stuff is basically a extract of seaweed that acts just like Jello at home. You add it to a liquid broth at a certain concentration. You autoclave it, heat it up basically above boiling. As it cools down, it'll solidify, and you can have a solid plate. Then you have things like you're going to use today. This one is called Mitis salivarius agar. So this is a type of agar that's going to be made to grow organisms that are in your mouth. Strep salivarius. But on this little jar, it says agar. That means there's already agar in this jar. So when you add the right amount, it's ready to go. You don't need to add any of this extra. Now to make one of these up, it's really simple. On the jar somewhere, a couple of things to notice. There's a piece that shows you what's actually in it. Then there's another part someplace, and I got to look at this carefully, that tells you how to make it. In this case, this says 90 grams of this powder into 1 liter of water. That simply means that you'd weigh out 90 grams of this, you'd put it into a flask, add water, stir it, mix it up a little bit, and then bring it up to 1 liter, and then distribute it however you want. Now, if you're going to make something that is different concentration, not concentration, but just different amounts, you can then just use proportions to figure out what that's supposed to be. If it's 90 grams in a liter, well then that means you just figure out how much you'd need if you're only going to make 100 mils, for example. So that's pretty simple. You're going to use tryptic soy agar, and so you can find out how much tryptic soy agar you're supposed to use by looking on the little container and figuring that out yourself. You also know that when you make this tryptic soy agar, approximately 30 milliliters will fill 1 petri dish. And we'll show you how to pour a petri dish in just a second. So you can figure out if your group of 2 is going to pour 4 petri dishes, that means you need 4 times 30. How many mils do you need? And you go over a little bit, and then you decide, okay, let's go to a round number, and then you add the right amount of powder into the right amount of water, and then you autoclave it, and then you let it cool, and then you pour your plates and let them solidify, and then they're usable. So we'll show you how to do a little plate pouring in just a second.